Hello everyone. Today we will be continuing our discussion of data representation with an overview of means and percentiles. Means and percentiles are both different data metrics that we can use to sort of help summarize a data set. So we'll be looking at the same example that we looked at in our last video, where we have ratings for presumably a pretty terrible movie on a 1 to 5 scale. Now, as you may recall from the last video, we talked about several different ways of graphically representing this data set. But the one that I would say is the most important for this video is going to be the frequency table. So the frequency table, as you may remember, basically just tells us how many times each different data value appears in our data set. So this would mean that we have 3 1s, 2 1.5s, 5 2s. And so on. So the first data metric that we will be looking at is the average, also known as the mean. Now, the way that we calculate the average is that we add up all of the data points. So in this case, we do 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1.5 plus 1.5, all the way through to the end of our data set. Add all of those up and then divide it by the number of data points we have. In this case, we have 20 data points in our set. A potentially easier way to do this would be by using our frequency table. So what we can do is we can take each of these ratings or different values that show up and multiply them by their frequencies and then add all of those up to get our total. So 1 times 3 plus 2 times 1.5 plus 5 times 2, or 2 times 5, whichever you prefer. And then 2.5 times 4. And we're going to basically just do this for our entire frequency table. So if we add all of these up, then what we end up with is 47. So our total is 47. If we divide this by the number of data points, which we have 20, then what we end up with is an average of 2.35. So this is the average for our data set. All the other data metrics that we'll be looking at in this video deal with the concept of percentiles. So if we have a percentile P, basically what that means is that P% of our data is at or below that value. So let's say we have the Pth percentile, so that would, let's say we have, for instance, the 90th percentile. That would mean that 90% of our data set is at or below that value. When we are finding percentiles, we use something that we call locators. We use L to indicate the locator, and the way that we find a locator for percentile P is we do P over 100 times N, where N is our number of data points. Once we have our locator, one of two things can happen. Either our locator is a whole number, in which case we go for data point number L.5, or if it's not a whole number, we do data point L+. What do these L.5 and L+ mean? Well, L.5 basically means the average of that data point number and the one above it. So, say we wanted data point number 3.5. We would do the average of data points 3 and 4. Now, it's important when you're doing these locators that you have all of your data points ordered from smallest to largest, otherwise this won't work. L plus is basically just our locator rounded up. So let's say we ended up with a locator of 3.2, then DL plus would be 3.2 rounded up, so D4, so we would go with the fourth data point in our set. So let's look at some percentiles for our example data set up here. So the first one that we'll look at is the median. Now the median is just the 50th percentile of our data set. So half the data is above it, half the data is below it. It's the exact middle of our data set. So what we'll do here to find our locator, our percentile is 50. So we'll do 50 over 100 times n, that's 20, our number of data points. This gives us a locator of 10. So our locator is a whole number, so we're gonna do DL.5. So we want data point number 10.5. This would be just the average of the 10th and 11th data points. So if we go up here, data point number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 is 2, and data point number 11 is 2.5. So if we average these two together, that gives us 2.25 as our median. The median is the most common percentile that we'll encounter. The next most common ones that we'll see though are the first or lower quartile and the third or upper quartile, which we abbreviate Q1 and Q3. The lower quartile is just the 25th percentile. So we would do the same thing, 25 over 100 times 20. This gives us a locator of 5. So we're going to want data point number 5.5 in this case. So that would be the average of the 5th and 6th data points. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 1.5, and then our 6th data point is a 2. If we average those together, we get 1.75. Next, we have our third or upper quartile. This is basically just the 75th percentile. So we're going to do the same thing. L equals 75 over 100 times 20. This is going to be, this works out to 15, which means that we're going to go with data point number 15.5. In other words, the average of the 15th and 16th data points. So that would be 3 and 3 are data points number 15 and 16. So if we take the average of those, we just get 3, of course, since we have two of the same thing. The last one that we'll look at is the 38th percentile. This is just sort of a random percentile that I picked out. So we're going to start by finding the locator exactly the same way that we did with all these other ones. So 38 over 100 times 20. So this works out to be 7.6. So notice this time we have a locator that is not a whole number. So we're going to go with the data point that goes with our locator rounded up. So 7.6 rounded up, that would be 8. So we want data point number 8, which is 2. So that's going to be our 38th percentile. Once we have our median and our quartiles, we can make what we call the 5-number summary for our data set. So these are the 5 components that go with the 5-number summary. So first we have our minimum, or the lowest value in our data set, so that's 1 in this case. And then Q1 we just said is 1.75, median 2.25, Q3 3, and our maximum, our highest value in the data set is 5. One point I should make about percentiles and 5-number summaries is that this method for calculating percentiles is pretty standard for, well, it is standard for the median, but for other percentiles, different textbooks and different sources may have different methods of calculating percentiles. So make sure when you're doing these types of problems that you check with your textbook or instructor or whatever it is that you're using to make sure that you're using the right conventions. Also make sure that your calculator, if you're trying to find the 5-number summary with your calculator, make sure your calculator is using the same conventions that you are. Once we have our 5-number summary, we can make a graphical representation of this using what we call a box plot. So the way that we're going to draw a box plot is we have our median first, so 2.25. We're going to draw this little vertical line here for our median. And then we're going to do the same thing for our quartiles, 1.75 and 3. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw a little box that has the median in the middle and the quartiles at the ends. Then we're going to take our minimum and maximum and we're going to draw these little whiskers extending out from the box that go out to the median, or minimum and maximum. Thank you for watching, and if you have questions, I'm of course happy to help.